On a perfect sunny day in LA, a family gathers to celebrate a child's birthday. Dad skillfully tends to the barbecue, Mom engages in lively conversation with friends, while the kids marvel at a cowboy's impressive lasso-throwing skills. Later, as the children gather around the cake, the cowboy's daughter looks out and suddenly freezes, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Cooper turns to see a colossal nuclear mushroom cloud billowing over the city. In a heartbeat, the blast wave races toward their home. Families rush to their bomb shelters for safety while the cowboy mounts his horse, galloping away as nuclear devastation unfolds behind them. Fast forward over 200 years. Lucy, a young woman of many talents, resides in shelter in Vault 33 alongside her father and brother Norman. They have been locked underground for centuries. She has been raised well and has the skills to pay the bills. However, she isn't happy. In a society where nearly everyone is related, Lucy asks the council to wed someone from neighboring Vault 32. They agree. With joy in her heart, Lucy dons the communal wedding attire, surrounded by neighbors and her father who serves as the vault's overseer. Festive tables adorn a field bordered by a holographic vista of distant mountains. Her father, filled with paternal pride, reflects on her mother's absence as the celebration commences. Lucy and company gather near the door, guarded by Lucy's cousin Chad, the gatekeeper. Lucy's suitor from the neighboring colony arrives. Their leader emphasizes the need for new blood, exchanging seeds and machinery parts. Lucy is paired with a shy young man, and they all head out to party. Amidst dancing and revelry, Norman observes with discontent, while the groom escorts Lucy to their bedchamber. The young couple begins to engage in intimate activity, while Norman diligently patrols the colony. Suddenly, Norman discovers the lifeless body of a fellow colonist. Meanwhile, Lucy is startled by a distant scream. Swiftly, she dons a Pip-Boy, revealing her husband's radiation contamination, a telltale sign of surface exposure. Upon realizing he's been exposed, he lunges at Lucy, hurling her against the wall. Despite her dazed state, Lucy recalls her training and attempts to disarm him, only to be stabbed in the side. As an alarm blares, her attacker's focus wavers, allowing Lucy to incapacitate him with a well-aimed blow from a vase. Administering first aid to herself, Lucy swiftly arms herself and rushes to the room where her fellow colonists are gathered. This is one hell of a wedding night, and it ain't over yet. Along the way, she encounters and dispatches an intruder, only to find herself thrust into the midst of a chaotic battle upon exiting the room. Acting quickly, Lucy saves Norman from a raider's attack, while her father subdues another assailant by inviting him to bob for apples, drowning him like a rat. Her daddy is a class act. With the colony facing a breach in its defenses, Lucy joins her father in confronting a team of hostile raiders who have taken her fellow colonists captive. Amidst the chaos, the raider leader issues a chilling ultimatum to Lucy's father: kill the colonists or sacrifice Lucy. As her father locks her away for safety, the raiders seize him and retreat to the surface just as an explosion shatters the colony's gates. Meanwhile, at the Brotherhood of Steel barracks on the Earth's surface, Scribe Maximus endures a brutal beating at the hands of his peers. With the help of a friend, Maximus recuperates and attends classes where he learns essential survival skills, preparing to serve as a squire. As steel-clad knights arrive at the barracks, Maximus is filled with awe. Later, his friend shows him their armor stored in a hangar, but their joy is short-lived when news of promotions brings unrest. Maximus discovers that his friend, destined to become Knight Titus's assistant, has been incapacitated by a blade in her boot. Falsely accused of the betrayal, Maximus is taken before the Brotherhood's leader. Back in the shelter, Lucy tends to her wound as order is restored. Determined to find her father, Lucy pleads with the council to assemble a search squad, but her request is denied. Undeterred, Lucy gathers supplies and embarks on a perilous journey to the surface. Despite Chad's insistence on joining, Lucy knocks him out and bids farewell to her little brother. Stepping through the gate, Lucy finds a vast expanse of sand and remnants of past tragedies lingering as she sets her sights on the distant horizon. She has never seen the sun before. Maximus faces false accusations of injuring a fellow comrade out of envy, vehemently denying any wrongdoing. Recognizing Maximus's innocence, the leader appoints him as an assistant to a steel knight. The following day, the leader tasks the knights and their assistants with locating an escaped scientist who has stolen a crucial object. Knight Titus and Maximus embark on a helicopter journey to their designated sector. Meanwhile, a group of bounty hunters resurrects a wild ghoul from its grave in pursuit of the same scientist, intending to seek assistance from the witch Moldaver, with whom the ghoul shares a history. Unexpectedly, the ghoul turns on the hunters, choosing to pursue the scientist independently. As Lucy traverses the surface, she sets up camp near an abandoned house one evening. While she sleeps by the fire, she is startled awake by peculiar sounds. Upon awakening, she witnesses a dog devouring a massive insect. A man by the fire warns Lucy about the dangers of mutated cockroaches resulting from the nuclear blasts. Despite the man's advice to return to the shelter, Lucy remains determined to find her father. Meanwhile, the Steel Knight and Maximus arrive at a sector near their landing site. They disembark and go on the hunt. The fugitive scientist and his dog seek refuge in a cave. Upon arrival, Maximus quickly locates the scientist's tracks, prompting the knight to venture into the cave. Despite lacking armor, Maximus follows. Inside, they encounter a massive mutant cave bear. The knight engages in combat and throws some fists, but is overpowered, fleeing in fear, revealing the knight's weakness and cowardice. Maximus successfully defeats the beast with a blast to the head. The knight threatens his squire with death for his mistake. Refusing to revive the wounded knight, Maximus resolves to find the fugitive himself. Donning the armor, Maximus discovers newfound strength and capabilities. He goes for a jog and destroys some ruins with a kick. He stops two men from fighting, realizing the importance of discerning who is truly deserving of protection. Lucy arrives in a town where she hopes to find clues about her father's kidnappers. There is lots of cool artifacts from the game here. Upon entering a shop, an elderly saleswoman recognizes her as a vault resident and warns her to leave, explaining that the town's inhabitants won't offer any assistance because of their affluent backgrounds and indifference to outsiders. Outside, the scientist with his dog approaches Lucy, surprised to see her still there. However, the saleswoman, who is actually waiting for him, intervenes, calling out to him. Suddenly, the ghoul appears, also seeking the scientist. The saleswoman offers a reward for protecting the scientist, prompting the ghoul to shoot him in the leg to hinder his escape. A big shootout ensues between those vying for the reward, during which Lucy sneaks into the shop, retrieves the order book, and discovers Moldaver's location. Despite intending to leave, Lucy witnesses the ghoul injuring the scientist's dog and hears his plea for help. She defends him and attempts to incapacitate the ghoul with a capsule to no avail. Just then, a knight arrives, asking Lucy to watch over the scientist while he confronts the ghoul. Lucy and the saleswoman assist the injured scientist, and the woman equips him with an iron leg before offering to guide him to Moldaver, providing the coordinates. As they depart, the ghoul engages in combat with the knight, exploiting his vulnerabilities as he struggles with the suit's navigation. Meanwhile, Lucy and the scientist take a break, during which the scientist succumbs to his injuries and tasks Lucy with delivering his head to Moldaver. This is the only way she can find her father. He passes away from poison, leaving Lucy to carry out his final request. As the ghoul tracks Lucy's movements, she pauses to rest and examines the head, inserting a tracking device into it for precaution. Meanwhile, Maximus discovers a malfunction in his armor and receives an unexpected call from the base. Max decides to assume the knight's identity and reports his own death, receiving assurances of a replacement scribe from base. Maximus seeks repairs for his armor in town, but returns to find local marauders attempting to dismantle his armor. In a fierce confrontation, Maximus beats down all the attackers but finds himself facing a new challenge with the arrival of the replacement assistant, and it is one of his former tormentors. Despite the setback, Maximus manages to conceal his identity and continues his mission. Lucy arrives at the former site of Hollywood and pauses by a pond, only to be ambushed by an unknown creature that snatches the backpack containing the scientist's head and disappears underwater. Despite her efforts to track the thief, Lucy finds herself in the crosshairs of the ghoul, telling him she can track the heat. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, Norman discovers that there are no plans to search for his father or Lucy, prompting him to realize he is on his own and must make moves alone. In another thread of events, Maximus subjects the assistant to various torments as a form of retribution for past humiliations, yet the assistant remains steadfast in serving the Steel Knight. Utilizing a specialized device, they trace the ghoul's radiation signature and stumble upon the headless corpse of the scientist. Meanwhile, the ghoul orchestrates a hunt for the underwater monster, using Lucy as bait. The creature emerges from the water and seizes Lucy, but the ghoul intervenes just in time to rescue her. In the ensuing struggle, Lucy manages to fend off the monster, but it escapes with one of her boots. Enraged, the ghoul seizes Lucy and presses on. The knight eventually reaches the pond, where they confront the monster. Maximus insists that the assistant retreat to safety while he takes on the creature alone. However, the assistant's intervention draws the monster's attention, leading to a chaotic battle. Ultimately, Maximus rescues the assistant from the creature's grasp, pulling out the creature's intestines, resulting in the monster's death. In its final act, the creature spits out the scientist's head and Lucy's boot before succumbing. A dog approaches them, joining their journey onward. The ghoul guides Lucy across the desolate wasteland, withholding water as they journey to the remnants of a once thriving movie studio where actor Cooper and his spouse once graced the screens. Their path leads them to an abandoned clinic, resonating with male cries of agony. Upon entering, they encounter an old acquaintance of the ghoul, undergoing painful mutations due to lack of proper medication. With compassion, the ghoul ends the suffering, explaining the necessity of sustenance. The ghoul begins to chow down on his friend. As they press onward, Lucy's thirst becomes unbearable until they stumble upon a structure containing radioactive water. Desperate, Lucy indulges, earning the ghoul's tacit approval and a glimpse into the harsh realities of the wasteland. The ghoul is distracted, so she runs off but is shocked by the crater in front of her. However, her brief respite is shattered when the ghoul ensnares her with his lasso, leading to a struggle where Lucy bites off the ghoul's finger, eliciting a violent retaliation. Their journey leads them to an old supermarket where the ghoul offers Lucy in exchange for meds. Disoriented, Lucy enters the building, unaware that the ghoul has succumbed to unconsciousness. Inside, she encounters a robot that offers her false solace and a new finger before revealing its sinister intent to harvest her organs. Lucy narrowly escapes its grasp, disabling the robot and seizing control. Armed with syringes filled with drain cleaner, she confronts the owners of the sinister operation, demanding the release of their captive ghouls. In a chaotic showdown, Lucy's actions trigger a chain reaction, unleashing mayhem as zombies emerge to exact vengeance. Back at the vault, Norman uncovers disturbing revelations about Vault 32 from the prisoners, and decides to grab Chad and go find out what happened to their sister vault. Norman and Chad persist in their investigation of the neighboring shelter, uncovering a startling revelation. The door was unlocked from the outside using a key bearing the name of Norman and Lucy's late mother. They discover the gruesome fate of its inhabitants at the hands of their own. They were not crazy, they had a full revolt. Meanwhile, Lucy stumbles upon medicine crucial for the ghoul's survival. Despite enduring torment at the ghoul's hands, Lucy chooses compassion, offering the medication. She says she will never be like him. Lucy departs, leaving the ghoul to tend to his wounds. Cooper wakes up and raids the store, finding a hoard or meds, and even a working TV. After slaking his thirst and boozing it up, his eye is drawn to find a tape of one of his old movies. The ghoul finds solace in old memories, indulging in the simple pleasure of watching an old tape featuring Cooper in his cowboy persona. Elsewhere, Maximus and his scribe relax and have some drinks. The two bond, the scribe gets branded, and Maximus shares his secret. But their moment of peace is shattered when the assistant launches a sudden attack upon recognizing Maximus. In the ensuing struggle, Maximus steps on the scribe's leg. However, the assistant's cunning allows him to incapacitate Maximus's armor, seizing the opportunity to run away with the scientist's head. Max is in big trouble now. As cockroaches swarm the immobilized suit, Maximus resigns himself to his fate until Lucy intervenes, shooting the rad roaches. She pukes hard. Too many rads and bad water. With Lucy's aid, Maximus is freed from the suit, and he provides her medication for radiation sickness. Upon recovery, Lucy proposes a partnership with Maximus to retrieve the scientist's head, utilizing her tracker to aid their quest. Their objective: deliver the head to the Brotherhood in exchange for assistance in locating Lucy's missing father. Meanwhile, back at Shelter 33, Betty assumes the role of warden, a decision met with Norman's disapproval. Norman hacks a computer and uncovers a startling pattern. All previous wardens were selected from the residents of Shelter 31. Very suspicious indeed. Lucy and Maximus approach a bridge, only to be halted by a pair of filthy vagrants. It's a really sketchy situation, and Lucy offers for everyone to cross with their hands up. Surprise, it's cannibals. Maximus's instincts kick in, prompting him to take action and fire first, narrowly saving them but injuring his shoulder in the process.
It's just a scratch. Happens all the time.
This encounter opens Lucy's eyes to the naivety of shelter life.
I hate it up here.
Their journey leads them to a billboard, bearing the emblem of the new California Republic, shattering Lucy's belief in the shelter's mission to revive America. They missed Reclamation Day by a century. Their path takes them around a vast crater in the heart of the city, where Maximus reveals he was living in the city before it was destroyed. He survived by hiding in a refrigerator. However, Lucy realizes the severity of Maximus's wound and leads him to a clinic. As Maximus enters the clinic, he finds himself alone as Lucy disappears. His search leads him to a chamber filled with gas, rendering him unconscious. Meanwhile, Betty leads her people to Shelter 32 for a partial relocation, only to discover the site devoid of bodies and any evidence of the tragedy. Norman seeks answers about his mother's key, learning that it was buried with her. Maximus and Lucy awaken in a vault, receiving medical attention and an offer to stay for Maximus's treatment. During their time in quarantine, Lucy takes on the role of teaching Maximus about love, a concept foreign to him as a knight. She basically tried to jump his bones, but Max is too shy.
Okie dokie.
Finally, they join the shelter community for lunch, but things seem a little off. They are suddenly struck by the sight of numerous people around them bearing various physical deformities. To Lucy, it's an unsettling sight, but Maximus sees it as just another day in the wasteland. Later on, at an interview with a Cyclops overseer, Lucy is shocked to learn that they accept surface dwellers, a practice strictly prohibited in her shelter. Everything seems swell until Lucy asks the Cyclops about the forbidden level 12, only to have the conversation abruptly cut short. Meanwhile, Maximus stumbles upon a room housing a nuclear reactor, supplying power to the entire underground facility. The leader presents him with an electronic key to his own personal quarters and suggests he take a break. Stepping into his room, Maximus is astounded to find it stocked with an array of luxuries and unfamiliar items. For the first time, he luxuriates in a genuine hot shower, dons a robe and slippers, and indulges in all kinds of novel delicacies. He scarfs down popcorn, cakes, and caviar. The dude must be in total heaven after a lifetime of eating garbage. As Maximus revels in his newfound comfort, Lucy discovers a chamber chronicling the entire history of the Californian Republic. Shockingly, life was rekindled here in 2142, only to meet its demise in 2277. Lucy is left reeling, pondering who would instigate such a catastrophic conflict and for what purpose. But she is soon interrupted by a signal, prompting all shelter inhabitants to converge at a designated location. Meanwhile, Cooper Wasiwu arrested by the federales and falls into the clutches of the self-proclaimed new president of the territory, who presided over the gruesome organ-trading supermarket. Wrongly accused of its destruction, the ghoul maintains composure, calmly requesting a needle and thread to mend his severed finger and inquiring about Moldaver's whereabouts. Despite his pleas, the president condemns the ghoul to death, Forcing him slaughter his was through the law enforcers in his quest to locate the elusive woman. In a separate thread, Lucy and her companions converge in a room adorned with a central altar ablaze with flickering candles. As the group begins to chant, swaying and gesturing with fervor, Lucy gradually slips into a trance-like state. However, her shock mounts as the ritual takes an unexpected turn. The participants start disrobing, leaving Lucy bewildered. A bowl containing ashes circulates among them, each smearing the residue on their faces, horrifying Lucy as she realizes its origin, its dead people. Another vessel holds blood, invoking the Mother of Flame to deliver them, praying to an image of Moldaver. Fearing the dark turn of events, Lucy begs Maximus to leave the vault with her, but the allure of the easy life captivates the knight, and he wants to stay. Determined to convince him to leave, Lucy ventures into the forbidden depths, stumbling upon a laboratory steeped in sinister experimentation on human subjects. Recoiling in horror at the macabre displays, Lucy's discovery is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a man in a white coat. Lucy gets got and glasses the guy, throwing a freaking beaker of acid in his face. She then manhandles the guards for a bit but ends up being dragged to the upper level. Meanwhile, Cooper reaches a miner's residence, where he confronts the eldest son, who possesses knowledge of Moldaver's whereabouts. Pressured by the ghoul, the frightened man divulges that Moldaver can be found at the observatory. However, as the ghoul prepares to depart, the boy attempts to kill him, ultimately paying with his life. Simultaneously within the shelter, Lucy faces the wrath of its leaders, who admonish her for betraying their hospitality, despite providing refuge, sustenance, and aid to her friend. Incensed by their hypocrisy and the atrocities witnessed, Lucy's fury mounts. Yet her perspective shifts when the leaders present her with a comprehensive recording detailing the laboratory attack by the very creature that nearly consumed her. Revelations emerge: the shelter's original inhabitants conducted grotesque experiments, transforming individuals into abominations. They now seek to mitigate the suffering of survivors, albeit through morally dubious means. Unbeknownst to Lucy, each shelter specializes in its own experimentation. Despite her ignorance, consequences for the whole acid-in-the-face thing loom as the leaders decree her punishment, exile to the surface. Surprisingly, they even say they will provide her with provisions. In her final plea, she beseeches them to spare her friend from the same fate. However, Maximus interrupts the proceedings, clad in full power armor using a stolen nuclear core from the reactor he found earlier. His arrival incites chaos as he confronts the shelter's occupants, poised to exact vengeance. He goes way too far and really wrecks their whole party. As the men scatter and Nuka-Cola flies, Lucy finally ends his rampage with the truth. As they are kicked out, Lucy convinces him to return the power core, or everyone in the vault will die. He agrees. She is impressed with his choice and for coming to her rescue, so she invites him to live in her vault after this is all over. However, Maximus divulges a dark secret, admitting his culpability in a fellow knight's demise and the fact that he stole the power armor. Despite his misgivings, Maximus expresses a genuine desire to accompany Lucy. Meanwhile, Thaddeus encounters a sketchy doctor offering to mend his injured leg in exchange for a power core. Surrendering to temptation, Thaddeus imbibes a potion that miraculously heals his leg. This really isn't normal. Moving on, the boy arrives at a perilous radio station, ensnared with deadly traps. After signaling the Brotherhood, Thaddeus engages in conversation with the radio station proprietor about how rare it is to find good music these days. Lucy and Maximus arrive on the scene, prompting Lucy to request the scientist's head. Thaddeus says no, but unwittingly triggers a trap and gets an arrow through the neck. But he doesn't die, he hardly even bleeds. He is transforming into a ghoul before their eyes. It was the doctor. Thaddeus is filled with regret. Placing trust in the unfamiliar doctor was a grave error, closing off any hope of returning to the Brotherhood, who would surely execute him on sight. As copters appear on the horizon, Maximus devises a desperate plan, urging Lucy to take the scientist's head and run. Seizing the opportunity, Lucy and the scribe make their escape, leaving Maximus to improvise. Grabbing a nearby unfortunate soul's head from a trap, Maximus hands it over to scam the Brotherhood. Meanwhile, the residents of Shelter 33 receive relocation notifications to the neighboring block, prompting opportunistic actions. Norman infiltrates the vault's computer, gaining access to Vault 31. As he heads there, the Brotherhood apprehend Maximus, escorting him to their camp. Handing over the head, Maximus confesses his knight's demise. However, upon discovering nothing within the head, he faces a death sentence. In a shocking twist, his lady friend begs for his life to be spared and confesses to putting the razors in her own boot out of fear. Apparently the leader is her dad, so he listens to her, prompting Maximus to offer the head's real location. Ordered to be released, Maximus finds himself amidst preparations for a showdown with the remnants of the NCR. Meanwhile, Lucy arrives at the observatory, where her imprisoned father awaits. Meeting Moldaver at the table, Lucy is greeted by a ghastly sight. A desiccated yet living mummy seated beside their host. Desperate for freedom, Lucy offers the head in exchange for her father's release. Moldaver withdraws a vial from the scientist's head, offering to divulge the true story of Lucy's father, despite his pleas for her not to listen. Meanwhile, Norman stumbles upon a robot housing a human brain in the concealed Shelter 31. The machine immediately attempts to administer an injection, missing Norman by a mile as he evades the erratic contraption. Moldaver's tale transports Lucy to the distant pre-war era, recounting the events surrounding actor Cooper's apprehension over his wife's warnings of an impending nuclear conflict. Cooper, driven by curiosity, covertly eavesdrops on a corporate council meeting through a bug planted on his wife. The billionaires were deliberating the decline in global sales and segue into discussions about the necessity of shelters. Arguments ensue regarding the feasibility of survival underground versus the peril of emerging into a potentially hostile surface world. Cooper's wife, prioritizing their daughter's future, advocates for the establishment of numerous shelters across America, each promising to fulfill the inhabitants' dreams. She is basically giving the other corporate bosses their own little kingdoms in the vaults. In the future, Norman stumbles upon a chamber housing cryosleep capsules labeled with the names of their occupants, including all previous wardens, even his father. The scene shifts back to the past, where Cooper's wife unveils the grand vision of over 100 shelters, each catering to the aspirations of its residents. Amidst heated debates, she proposes instigating the war themselves, viewing it as an opportunity to monopolize the world's resources and shape a new future, unencumbered by competition. This is big in terms of new lore, because it was never stated who started the war before, but it was the Vault Tech Corporation. They launched the first bombs. Cooper is momentarily distracted by a young admirer seeking an autograph, and it is revealed to be Lucy's father. Back in the present, Moldaver discloses the longevity of Lucy's father. As a member of the corporation responsible for orchestrating the end of the world, he is hundreds of years old. He was also responsible for his wife's death. She had astutely observed water anomalies, indicating the return of civilization. She recognized the signs and told her husband, yet her warnings were dismissed, leaving her distrust her own husband and his intentions. So she gathered the children and fled, seeking refuge in a magnificent city called Shady Sands on the surface. However, her father and his men soon arrived, laying waste to the once thriving metropolis. Lucy then learns that she was carrying a source of infinite energy coveted by corporations. This revolutionary technology holds the power to rejuvenate the wasteland. Lucy makes yet another startling discovery. The pendant adorning the mummy's neck was her mother's. She finally found her mom. Despite her father's pleas to distrust Moldaver, Lucy demands her dad give over the access code so that power can be restored to the wasteland. Reluctantly, he yields, providing her with the crucial numbers. With the code in hand, Moldaver begins to initiate the cold fusion process. Meanwhile, Norman faces a daunting obstacle as the robot bars his exit, determined to prevent him from leaving after he uncovers unsettling truths. Simultaneously, Lucy's father implores her to release him from his confinement and return home. Suddenly, an alarm blares, signaling the arrival of Brotherhood helicopters over the observatory. Chaos erupts as knights and their assistants descend, engaging in a fierce battle with the observatory's defenders. Amidst the mayhem, Maximus charges forward, desperately searching for Lucy. As the knights swiftly storm into the building, they encounter a formidable obstacle in the form of the ghoul. To their surprise, The ghoul was once a military man and clad in armor like them. He knows their weakness. He exploits their vulnerabilities with ease, incapacitating the Iron Knights while remaining unscathed himself. In the midst of the chaos, Lucy grapples with conflicting emotions, torn between her father's desperate pleas to return home and the grim reality of her mother's fate. Her daddy is not a good guy after all. As the tension mounts, a wounded knight collapses at the room's threshold, followed by Maximus. Rushing to Lucy's side, Maximus's concern is met with a shocking revelation. Lucy's own father is responsible for the destruction of Maximus's beloved city. Before Maximus can fully process this revelation, Lucy's father, now armored and determined, forcibly removes Maximus from the equation, putting him to sleep. Armed with determination, Lucy confronts her father with gun in hand, ready to shoot, but is interrupted by the sudden entrance of the ghoul. Upon learning Lucy's surname, the ghoul is taken aback, realizing that Lucy is connected to someone he has sought for over 2 centuries, a member of the Vault Tech Corporation, the very same organization he has been searching for to uncover the truth about his family's fate. In a desperate bid to escape, Lucy's father activates jet engines and flees the scene, unknowingly leaving behind a trail that the ghoul can use to track down the hidden location of the world's rulers, the very individuals who orchestrated the devastating nuclear war. He asks Lucy to accompany him, but first she fires her weapon to end her mother's suffering. With resolve, Lucy bids farewell to the unresponsive Maximus and opts to follow the ghoul. Soon, an injured Moldaver returns to the room where Maximus has regained consciousness. She has successfully initiated the reactor, granting humanity infinite energy. A bewildered Maximus observes as many lights flicker to life amidst the city's ruins. Moldaver smiles, her mission accomplished, and passes away. The arriving Brotherhood members, misinterpreting the scene, believe Maximus to be responsible for Moldaver's demise and hail him as a hero and new true knight. Looks like things worked out for your boy. Meanwhile, the ghoul and Lucy continue their journey, tracing her father's path through the unforgiving desert towards a distant city on the horizon. And with that, the series draws to a close. Thanks so much for watching. So, what do you think? Did it do the Fallout games justice? Did you like the ending? Let us know your opinions down below. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like and subscribe so that you get our new releases while they are hot.